I'm Michelle.
I'm Chris.
And I'm SP from the Starling Tribune,
a podcast member of the Gonna Geek Network.
Just like the show you're listening to now.
The opinions expressed are those of each individual host.
Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeek.com.
And get ready because geekiness begins in
3,
2,
1.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the IntelleXual Podcast. I'm your host, David S. Dawson, and I guess when it rains, it pours, as this is our second episode for the week. That's what happens when we get to attend cons. We get a lot of content, and we tend to put it out as quickly as possible so that those of you who enjoyed the con have a chance to revisit the exciting experiences that you had from the weekend. So, we just finished San Diego WhoCon. We posted our live podcast from San Diego WhoCon yesterday, and today we're going to post, we're posting Talking TARDIS, our post-Jodie Whittaker debut episode recap that we did live at San Diego WhoCon with an audience of Whovians. And this is a fun episode as Whitney and I are totally interacting with a group of fans who watched the 13th Doctor premiere, and then we had a good half-hour chat about the program before we watched the second episode of the 13th Doctor. It's a fun, lighthearted episode with a really great discussion with the people who enjoy the show. So if you're a fan of Doctor Who or you're curious about Doctor Who, this is a great episode for you to listen to, as it helps you get a little bit of perspective on who the Doctor is and what the show Doctor Who is all about. Before we get into the episode, I need to recognize my peeps at the Gonna Geek Network. The IntelleXual Podcast is a proud member of Gonna Geek. You can check out all sorts of geeky-related podcasts at GonnaGeek.com. And in particular, maybe you should check out this week Game Life Balance Australia. It's a stream of nonsense time once more. Oh, how the time flies. So join your hosts AC and Rob as they discuss Professor Corona's Lemon Cartel, Super Mario Bros. Power-Ups, Japanese animal cruelty circuses, the entire history of Rob's experiences with the Mario franchise, handheld nostalgia, free Nintendo DS games, Astro Boy's butt gun, 8-bit Muttley, the joy of being stuck in a hospital with a toddler for 48 hours, and even the greater joy of trying to learn Braille. All that and more on Game Life Balance Australia. You can check them out at GameLifeBalanceAustralia.com or look for their library of episodes at GonnaGeek.com. And now, the 227th episode of the IntelleXual Podcast, live from San Diego WhoCon, post-Doctor Who recap episode, Talking TARDIS.
Talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. The IntelleXual Podcast starts now.
Hey everybody, welcome. This is the IntelleXual Podcast. It's San Diego WhoCon, post-Doctor Who recap episode. I'm personally calling it Talking TARDIS.
Oh, I like it. Talking TARDIS.
I'm David Dawson. This is my co-host, Whitney Wegman.
Hello, hello.
And we're going to talk with all of you for a little bit about the premiere of the 13th Doctor, Jodie Whittaker. And who here, did all of you see it before tonight? Or was tonight your first? Your first? Your first? First ever episode of Doctor Who.
Lots of them will make you cry.
Steve, can you hand her a mic? Ma'am, what's your name?
Laura.
Laura?
Yep.
Welcome to the Whoniverse.
Thank you. First timer.
What?
I was like, either going to kick me out or welcome me. I don't know.
What was it about the episode made you cry?
Grandma died. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was good. Yeah.
And Grace died. We barely knew her. I have a feeling we'll see her again.
Yes, I'm sure.
Time is a weird thing in Doctor.
But
I'm learning.
What's really delightful about all of Doctor Who is the writing. There's so many of the episodes that get you like that. Like there can be really silly things happening, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, it got me. I was not expecting that from this silly show. Like this really intense writing and beautiful relationship stories that are created. Like like you said, we knew Grace for what? An entirety of 50 minutes. And you're still like, don't die, Grace. Don't go into the lights.
Use the mic, please.
But at the same time, you're laughing at Carl. I am important. I am. Somebody loves me, and then Grace dies.
Well,
I'm
that's
like,
one of the beauties of Doctor Who, right? Like,
yes.
You go straight from the absurd to the dramatic, all in one move. In our podcast earlier today, Mark Biaggi and Ben were talking about that fact that sci-fi, specifically as a genre, allows you to do deep drama plus wonderful comedy seamlessly, and it all fits together, as well as having big set pieces like jumping from crane, which apparently was the first night of shooting for Jodie.
Of course,
was doing that, and she did her own stunt jump across the crane, which is pretty cool, right? There were a lot of women in here tonight watching. Obviously, Jodie Whittaker is the first female Doctor, which I think has been a long time coming.
Yeah.
And I would like to hear from some of the women in the audience. How did it feel to see this iconic character portrayed in your particular gender? What did it mean to you? Does it mean anything? Does it not mean anything?
It means something just because the standpoint, technically, from classic Who, it was pretty much a arm candy. If you think about it, there wasn't much expected of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then the new Who brought in more intelligent, stronger women, not from the standpoint that the others weren't, but these are more, it's acceptable for them to be independent, more strong.
Mm-hmm.
And, people didn't really say or like, why are you doing this? Because she knows what I'm talking about.
Well, I think it was really interesting. We were watching some of the previous Christmas special before we showed this tonight. And they really tackled that head on with the first Doctor and the 12th Doctor. And the 12th keep telling him, don't say that.
You can't say that. Stop. Just stop.
Yep.
Just don't. And it's really interesting, I think, the way Who has adapted over time to the changing political and social climate, which I think is really fantastic. There was a girl who was sitting here watching tonight, just adorable. She won the Weeping Angel costume.
Oh yeah, she just left.
And she sat in our. We did the Big Finish live last night.
Sat there for the full 2 hours.
2 full hours.
Attention.
Didn't want us to take intermissions because she was enjoying herself so much, and we gender swapped the 6th Doctor with a female last night. And so she got to watch for 2 hours, not 10 feet in front of her, a female Doctor. And my friend Whitney here played Dr. Evelyn Smythe in the play last night. So she got to see 2 powerful female doctors in front of her. And her mom was talking about how much it meant to her to be able to watch that last night and sitting in here tonight and seeing Jodie. I think it's really great, personally.
And I don't know that I shared this with you, but last night, that same little girl, after seeing the play, came up to me and she said, I need to take a picture with you. I'm going to be the Doctor and you're my companion. I'm like, that's great, kid. I love it.
It seemed to me, other than the few comments about I haven't bought women's clothes and stuff, it seemed pretty seamless. I mean, I think she really captured the Doctor and the goofiness and I haven't figured that out yet. And it didn't seem like there was any like, oh, I'm a woman, we're going to do things differently. No feminism, the kind of thing that people are afraid of. I mean, I'm a woman, obviously, so maybe a man could speak to that, but I just felt it was the Doctor.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Well, I think when she fell through the roof on the train, they had the brief moment where they kind of addressed it. Why are you calling me ma'am? And it was not so much a call to like, hey, I'm a woman. It was just like, what? Oh, okay. Which, that's, I think, how most of us would like the Doctor to be. The Doctor doesn't care or anything. The Doctor's the Doctor. Whatever the parts look like, the Doctor's still the same beautiful spirit on the inside. And I personally think that's one of the things that I love about Who is that pursuit of the good person within. in an ever-changing world and an ever-changing universe, the one thing we all have control of is who we are on the inside. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about Doctor Who, that it constantly explores that kind of storytelling, which is really cool. And then, yeah, it really wasn't, a lot of people were scared. I'm a man. I heard it from a lot of dudes who were really small-minded, that's not my doctor, like, well, we're not talking presidencies here. It's a fictional character.
I actually think it has more to do with having a crush on. I mean, us girls, I went into a little shock. It's like, ooh, now how am I going to deal with my crush? Not saying that I wasn't going to deal with it, but it's like, some of those crushes
crushing
are extreme.
on Colin Baker at any point in time?
I'm sure a few were.
Maybe a few.
I think that, and I also think the guys liked the pretty female characters, and I kept wondering if they were more like, oh, great, I'm going to have a crush on the doctor, and the doctor's always been male.
That's a really interesting perception.
Well, I live in Hillcrest too, so.
Yeah, what does that do for the psyche of a man?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying, because when they announced female, I was like, oh, great. Those 19 dreams. Yes, I fully admit to them. But then I just like, okay, I have crushes on women too. They just, my dreams will be different.
Well, and I'm sure there's also something to be said of, as an audience member, we align with certain characters, right? And now the gentleman, more or less, will probably have to align with the companion. And that will be a change from, the run thus far, which has been quite long. So I think that's probably, I don't know.
Well, and it is a bump up in the number of companions from what most of New Who has been.
Mm-hmm.
There were more companions in Classic Who, but we are now 2 male companions and 1 female companion. And the female companion, in many ways, is a stronger character than either of the 2 males. One of the males has a disorder that makes him clumsy, and the other one is fearful a lot. And Yaz is neither of those things. She's a police officer who wants to take on more role, be stronger. I think it's going to be a very interesting dynamic with these 2 kind of very strong female characters next to these 2 men who have a lot of developing that they still need to do, which I think it'll be really interesting dynamic to explore. But they want to. Yes, they want to. And then open-mindedness is key, right? Yeah, very cool, very cool. Does anybody have anything about the first episode that really kind of stood out to them? I mean, Grace dying was obviously a really powerful moment for a lot of people. Although I heard from some people who were like, I didn't know her long enough to know to feel anything. Everything's different for everybody. Was there anything standing out?
I know this is going to sound a little, I don't know. I kind of took notice of how many times the new doctor said sorry. And I was like, what's going on there? Is that because that tends to be a woman type of thing to do, which a lot of people point out, and a lot of people are trying to say, hey, we need to stop doing that. But that one kind of caught me off guard. And I wasn't sure if I was judging because it was a woman, or is it a personal thing? Yeah, that was just one of those things that kind of dinged for me. Yeah.
Now, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I feel like Tennant was always very apologetic. And actually, even in the portrayal, she had a lot of very David Tennant mannerisms.
That's what everybody knows.
Well, and Jodie and David are like really good friends, and they worked on Broadchurch together.
On legs too.
But she did say that she had longer legs before.
That's a very interesting catch, and you're right. I've seen the episode 4 times now. She does say sorry a lot, but me personally, I never took it as a kind of like pathetic sorry. It was always kind of just in the moment and relevant to what's going on. But I wonder if the writers had something in mind with that. But it also did stop. It also did stop towards the end of the episode. She stopped apologizing for things towards the end. as she came more and more into who she was going to be, right? We got another one over here. You were at the Big Finish Live.
I really enjoyed the moment when they stepped back and had her making the new sonic screwdriver. I gotta say that this is the first time I saw the episode. When I was looking in the stores at the new sonic screwdriver, I was thinking,
it's a weird design,
the sonic screwdriver. But what they take that moment to show her just owning like a mechanic shop. And one of the things I feel like it was like a MacGyver moment or something where it was very empowering to her. And I don't know, it was very interesting. I was one of the people who was apprehensive about it. I'm like, is this going to be like some sort of statement or something? I'll be like, Dr. Boobs. I don't know. But it was very, it felt very natural. And having that, it was almost like a step up, because most of the time the doctor is more of like a fix-it person, like finding ways around, like almost personal fix-it situations or fixing things that are broken, but not necessarily making things that are new.
Yeah.
And that was like stepping up the game a bit.
Yeah.
It was very, very interesting.
Yeah, I thought it showed a really wonderful dynamic for this new doctor, that she doesn't just wait for the TARDIS to give her a new Sonic. She's like, I need this now. I'm resourceful. I'll take care of it. I think that's incredible. And especially if we remind ourselves that Doctor Who is a child's program, right? I see you sitting there. That's a wonderful message to be giving to young ladies around the world. That you don't have to wait for somebody else to give it to you. You don't have to wait for anything to provide. Go out and make it yourself. Put it together. Take charge.
Not just that, but ladies can be just as technically inclined as gentlemen.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We need more women in science and technology. So if this encourages that, by all means.
I love the fact that companions over the years have all gone, it's a sonic screwdriver. It just makes noise. And now she's like, it's really not a screwdriver. It's more like a sonic Swiss Army knife without the knife, because that's stupid. And that's what everybody's always been thinking, and they've voiced it this year. I love that.
Yeah. I really, of all the Sonics, this is the most alien looking one and it was made on Earth, which I think is really kind of fun. And it's full of Sheffield steel, which, is fun. It's made of spoons.
I got that out of that too.
Yeah, that was McCoy.
He's always playing the spoons in ridiculous ways.
Yeah, well, and Capaldi had his spoon moment. So that's a carry on throughout, and that's an interesting thing too, because Chris Chibnall, who's show running Doctor Who now, he's been very adamant that this is a stepping off point. It's new, and no classic characters are going to be coming back, and we're not going to be diving into the history too hard. But there was a lot of history in this episode. They didn't hit you over the head with it, though, but it's there. And one of the things in the Moffat era, Stephen Moffat, who showrun after Russell T Davies, was they had written that thing in, first rule, the Doctor lies. But a lot of us morphed that into rule number 1, Moffat lies. I think Chibnall is lying too. And he wrote for Moffat. So, I think there's some of that coming in. I think we're going to see a lot more references to the history of Who than they've been.
Well, and there was already sort of a little like wink and nod when she said, it's been a while since I've bought women's clothes. So at some point in the history of the Doctor, like, a doctor, a woman before leaving Gallifrey.
Well, not a woman before, but definitely wore female clothes. Third Doctor spent some time in drag. The Master said that, yeah.
That was suggested.
Yeah.
She said that, am I lying?
Exactly. So, there's a lot about the Doctor that we don't know, but you'll see in the next episode, which we're playing right after this podcast, there's an allusion to another greater mystery, which is enticing. Eager to see where that goes. We got another question?
Not a question really, but I think every time there's a new Doctor, there's people who say, I don't like this Doctor. So whether it's a woman or a man, I think there'd be, I don't know statistically, but there'd be a bunch of people who say, I don't like this guy.
Yeah.
So I try not to fixate on this woman-man thing.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't help me very much.
Yeah.
But it's just,
in the end, it's
I'm
the character
super
we
happy
love.
that she's Jodie. You're super happy, but because it's a nice change for me. That's all.
Yeah, I like the positivity of Jodie's portrayal, the kind of bonkers, zany enthusiasm, and just she just radiates light as the character, which I think is really cool. And it's an interesting thing. If we look at how Jodie's portraying the Doctor as this kind of very enthusiastic, very positive-minded individual, and compare that to a lot of Capaldi's Doctor, and if you think about that Christmas special and that speech that he gave to himself before regenerating, so much of Jodie's portrayal is beautifully tied into the things that the Doctor said to himself before turning into her. And I think if you kind of go back and I've rewatched that speech now 5 times since Jodie debuted, and I love how that through line of that speech is carrying into her portrayal. Really cool.
Can I tag on? Can I tag onto that thought, David? Just the fact that she is playing it more light, vibrant. The way that they've changed the cinematography on the show, it's a lot darker. It is a lot more cinematic. I think that's almost a necessity, or it would bring the whole thing like atmospherically just down, really down. And so I think you need that light touch as an actor.
Yeah.
To compensate, to balance it out.
We got it over here.
Oh yeah, I was going to point out that it's kind of nice having Capaldi's grumpy, Doctor followed by this very effervescent Doctor. But I think for me, as far as it being a woman, the most thing is she seems slightly maternal, but not overpoweringly so. More of a supportive person. She comes
across as a teacher.
Yeah, she comes across as a teacher. Yeah, very nicely. And given the difference with the last Doctor, I think that's a really good way to go about it. But it embraces the femaleness, the nature of females, to be more supportive, perhaps, and more of a teacher without overpowering it. So she's still the Doctor. She still gets mad. She still, does what she needs to do. But at the same time, she is ever so slightly different, which is male and female in the way that they're different.
Yeah. Well, and I really liked her interaction with Yaz that first time when Yaz is like, I got to go and report this. And she's like, why? And the interchange between the two of them was such an interesting dynamic. And for me, just getting to see the Doctor as a character interacting with the universe from that kind of more feminine perspective is going to be a really interesting thing to see. And it's not, oh, it's a woman, it's really important. It's such a different way of looking at the universe. And for me as a man, if it can help me understand women a little better, that's a really cool thing.
That's a nice thing to say. My comment is, one thing that really stood out to me is when they're in the mechanic shop and Graham is kind of freaking out and she gives them, it's okay to be afraid, it's okay, change is okay. That I thought was like addressing the fandom and saying, you know what, it's okay.
Yeah, and her final speech before she takes the moniker was kind of the same.
Exactly.
And I've heard some people say that those were maybe a little too on the nose, but I think it was necessary to say it, without saying it, without saying I'm a woman. It's just change happens, but it doesn't change that we are the people we've always been. But because of the way the world and the universe works, we're constantly evolving and changing, and we don't have to forget who we were just because things make us change. Yes, ma'am.
Back to your reference to the speech of this last doctor. Did they know then that the next doctor was going to be female? Did they already know all that?
They had already cast before they started shooting.
Before the end of the last one.
Yeah.
They knew what was coming.
Yeah. Okay. So Moffat knew when he was writing it. Absolutely. Back there in the corner.
The
and Moffat had been moving things that
gave,
direction for a while.
The speech that Peter Capaldi gave about how children can only children can hear it.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually, from what I saw an interview, that's actually something. He was at a con and a child asked him, "What's your real name?" And so that whole speech is something he actually said himself, and they worked it into the last show.
Beautiful.
An articulate gentleman.
Got one up here in the front.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Laugh hard, run fast, be kind. Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you for that. Man, that's beautiful.
So we've talked a lot about, the changing over of the casting. What about like the structure of the show in general? Did anything strike you guys like as being drastically different from who's that you have watched before, either in the story structure or the aesthetics or anything?
I think it's the prettiest who's ever looked. This new season is just, cinematography is out of this world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's amazing. As a filmmaker, I'm just, wow, look at that crane shot over the side of the hill. And
it's sharp. It looks like a major motion picture,
Yeah.
I think. By comparison to if you look at some of the older ones where it's very...
I mean, New Who's always been a step up from Old Who, right?
Well, I even
but this is now another step up. I think it's another maturation of the art form that they're existing in. I think it's really cool. I think it's nice. Tim Shaw.
I love that. That was deliberate on her part too. She deliberately messed his name out just to scream up.
Yeah. The young gentleman here in the front. What did you think of Tim Shaw? Would you like a face full of teeth like that?
No.
I like your Ghostbusters shirt, by the way. And your adipose. That's I really thought Tim Shaw was a really cool character. Bit of a predator.
Yeah, he reminded me of the Predator.
But
sans dreadlocks.
But what a cool thing when he pulled his mask off. I was like, that was a great piece of makeup. The noise of it kind of clattering in it. It's so much fun. Did we have one back there?
I just have my one comment based on yours saying people have difficulty. So this is not my dog. I don't like it. I like it. Don't you think that David Tennant kind of poked fun at that when he would see, oh, I don't like it.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. The I don't like it bit.
Yeah, and I loved it when Jodie Whittaker, when she finally sees her TARDIS.
Hey, spoilers.
Sorry. Eventually, in some other future.
This is Steve Schwartz.
Steve spoiling things.
He's the third host of the IntelleXual Podcast.
I
occasionally.
Looks like I'm
he
out of
gets
a
put in the
job.
timeout box on a regular basis for bringing all the air out of the show. Personally, I really enjoyed watching this tonight with a group of people. It was fun to hear people laughing and cheering together, and I wish there was a way to do that more often. I like the communal nature of the Who community. And it's wonderful to come together for the con, but man, I think there needs to be a Sunday night get together. Start
Leave
watching
your
Doctor
name at
Who.
the door.
Oh, Shakespeare's on it.
Yeah, but can we? Yeah.
Kids go in because
Have they been airing the Doctor Who at Shakespeare's?
Yeah, they had the first premiere was there the premiere was there. John, the programmer here, he set that up.
Right, he runs a meetup group, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
And there was one last weekend too.
So there we go. There's an opportunity if you guys want to like get together at Shakespeare's Pub on Sunday nights. They're gonna
What's
be
even
watching.
cooler is right around behind them is a tea shop.
Yep, Shakespeare's Tea Shop.
So you got it all.
Very nice.
We actually ate there yesterday after we did our fan filmmaker panel. I'm super excited for where Doctor Who's headed. I have been since Doctor Who came back. I will give you. You said I'm a true Whovian, which I'm honored to have anybody say that. But I will be honest, I didn't come to Who until New Who. But I want to give you a little story, and it's kind of an interesting story because everybody always asks, who's your doctor, right? Like that's the big question. Who's your doctor? And for a long time, I was like, Tennant. It's absolutely Tennant until the 50th rolled around, and they did that little webisode where the 8th turned into the War Doctor, and I was watching that, and I started crying when I saw McGann on screen. I'm like, why am I crying? Like, such a bizarre reaction. And then it dawned on me that while I was in college in the mid-90s, a bunch of my friends were into Doctor Who and Red Dwarf, and I wasn't into either. And I never bothered to watch it with them. And then when I moved back to California from college and I was here, the TV movie came on, and I was missing my friends from college, and I thought, I'll just give this a try, and I watched it. And I enjoyed it, and it never came back, and I just forgot all about it. Until I saw the 8th Doctor on screen again. I'm like, look at him, he's aged, and he's like, he's had a life, and I missed it all. But yeah, on Big Finish. And a very interesting thing about that webisode is they referenced his companions from the Big Finish episodes, which turned them into canon, which is really cool. So I would like to encourage all of you, if you haven't been listening to the Big Finish audio dramas, check them out. They're very, very cool.
They're quite good.
And go to Shakespeare's Pub, talk to John about the meetup group, because watching the show with other people who are enjoying it is just a whole different experience, and it's a lot of fun. And with that, I think we're going to go ahead and let you guys get on to the next episode, which I have seen. Has anybody not seen 2? You haven't seen the second one? A bunch of you haven't seen it.
Wow, okay.
This is going to be fun.
It will be a great communal experience.
It's a much brighter episode than the first one. So I think on this screen we'll have a little bit easier time seeing this next episode than the first one, which was really dark.
It was very dark.
Your first Doctor.
That's her doctor now.
At least your first Doctor is usually your favorite.
That's kind of like the James Bond that you grew up with is like your favorite Bond.
Yes. So thank you all so much. We are the IntelleXual Podcast. It's not necessarily friendly for childhood ears usually. We talk with actors and writers and musicians and entertainers across the spectrum.
And scientists and politicians and other people.
Scientists and politicians and other people. And I usually try to forget that we talk to politicians ever. But it's a very interesting show about kind of the life of being an artist and how the various artists that we talk to attack the craft and find inspiration and try to make a living at being an artist, which is not easy.
And
Whitney
then sometimes we
both,
go down weird rabbit holes and talk about things like the afterlife. I'm specifically thinking of that one episode.
Yeah, we had a whole episode that was like all about string theory and ghosts, which was really interesting. It's like,
to be fair, we were interviewing someone who hosts a ghost hunting show, so it totally makes sense in context.
But I would love it if you would all subscribe to us. If you got your phones, we're on iTunes, we're on Google Play, we're on iHeartRadio, Spotify, but not SoundCloud.
And we're members of the Gonna Geek Network.
And yeah, we're on the Gonna Geek Network, where you can also find a bunch of Doctor Who podcasts, as well as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. podcasts and stuff like that. So thank you all so much. Let's get into the next episode of Doctor Who with the 13th Doctor. Let's give John a big hand for all the work this man has put into putting this con on. He's like single-handedly holding up the Whoniverse this weekend. So let's hold it out for him.
Please let me return the favor and extraordinary this week. They put on
Thank you.
They finished Readers Theater last night. They've done a bang-up job on our podcast. Art, honor, to have them do what them again.
Aw, thank you.
Hello there, citizens. I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am the floaty that will not flush no matter how many times you try in the toilet bowl of crime. I am Darkwing Duck, telling you please, talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. Whatever the heck that means. After all, you are watching IntelleXual Podcast with your ears.
If you've enjoyed this episode and you have a geeky-related podcast of your own that you think would be a good fit for the network, fill out our application form found at www.gonnageek.com/join.